E bine, cred că e bine. Ok. Bun, bine v-am regăsit la un nou live pe canal. Un live imediat după ce am terminat Soma. Indiferent cum o să vedeți voi la acesta, o să jucăm un joc micuț. My Name is You se numește. Este, te-am înțeles eu, un joc rusesc, dar bine, cu engleză și asta frumos. Și practic este un ceva roman pus într-un joc cu alegeri și nu e cine știe ce mare joc, e micuț, e foarte ieftin, câțiva leișori, mic, e, na, îl am de mult, dar hai să vedem cum e jocul. Da, Roșca, hai să vedem alegerile, nu o să fie foarte, nu chiar o să fie scură, cred că undeva la o oră, 2 ore, dacă vrei să fii completionist. Hai să vedem ce facem. New story, și care trebuie să fie destul de mișto.
Chapter 1.
Este un joc așa, gen filler. Am vrut să-l fac de mult și... ok, trebuie să dau eu.
Once upon a time, there lived you. Despite his unusual name, his life was hardly any different from others. It was an unusually usual day when he was getting ready to go to work. 2 hours of sleep. What a formality, he said to himself, glancing at his watch.
Dacă vă place acest joc sau ceva pe canalul continuare, nu uitați acolo like. Hai să vedem ce alegeri putem face în acest joc micuț și dacă va fi drăguț. Hai să vedem.
That morning, the buttons on his shirt were fastened faster than usual.
Ok. Îmi place cum e până acum. Nu vă lași audio.
The tear-off calendar boldly declared Friday, April 3rd. It reminded him that there were only 3 work days before his holiday, and there was no room for mistakes. His room in a communal apartment was not very big, so it did not take him long to pack.
Ok.
Having got dressed, he quietly walked past the neighbors' rooms into the hallway. Somebody was snoring loudly in the furthest room, which caused you to smile for some reason. He walked up to the front door and accidentally stepped on a pile of letters. Picking up the envelopes, he saw his name on one of them. You automatically put it in his pocket and walked out. The thought that next Sunday entrance to the crypt of his existence by the power of labor legislation kept you going.
Ready to work, letter. Hai să citim.
Glancing at the address line, a chill went through Yu's body for a split second. From Darina.
Oh, who's Darina?
Yu was confused by the seal on the envelope, indicating the place of departure, Novigrad. Is she really coming back to CANAL? Yu wondered. Dear Yu, my doctor's suspicions are confirmed. I have the same disease that struck you. I thought it over and decided that we need to break up.
Ah, come on.
It may seem that things like that should bring people closer, but it would be unfair to myself. We can have our last date on the morning of April 3rd in the Seafront Cafe, and then I will leave CANAL and go abroad. He felt dizzy.
Am ațit. Go to work, go to the cafe. Cafe.
Although you suffered from excessive hypochondria,
Nu știu ce
you
înseamnă.
really had an incurable illness.
Urmează. Care?
He clearly remembered the day when he heard the diagnosis. Since that moment, he stopped counting new birthmarks on his body. He seemed shaken up after reading the letter, but not surprised. He tried to squeeze out a tear to see if he was still capable of showing emotions. Alas, he just welled up a little. You decided that it was because he had drunk a large amount of coffee, which dehydrated his already dried up body. Approaching the seafront, he tried to spot Darina. It did not take him long to find her. There she was, at the cafe table.
Ceva.
She probably had no clue how much he appreciated her starting the conversation. Usually, you are late.
Ok.
I am tired. I hope you understand me. But he did not. Having overcome his anxiety, he squeezed out a handful of words.
Agree with parting. Ask her to stay. Ask her to stay, right?
Do not go away. Let's try once more. Too late. I have put up with my life for the sake of old age. Now, there will be no old age. There had always been a gap of misunderstanding between them. He had embraced his illness long ago
Dar care illness?
and resignedly yielded to his ailment with a loud, "Make yourself at home." It seemed that he had become closer to his illness than to Darina. He got distracted thinking about himself and missed her meaning. Reflections on how to rebuild his life from the very beginning prevailed over the others. He was not ready to renew his relationship with himself, so he mentally grasped at the crumbles of the past, seeping through his crucified palms. I am sorry. I have made my decision. I do not know why I arranged this meeting.
Fuck you then.
She paid for the bill and left. You froze in place, at first not daring to say anything, and then resigned himself to the role of a scapegoat thrown into the unknown. For some reason, he saw something noble in their breakup. You were sure that he went to work immediately after the meeting, but when he came to his senses, he realized that he was on an unfamiliar street, cloaked by dusk. Despite the fact that the street seemed to be deserted, he felt someone's heavy presence.
Cine?
Turning to rustle behind his back, you impaled his chest on a knife, squeezed in the hands of a long familiar figure. Greetings from the past. Whether from pain or surprise, you could not utter a single word. The murderer carefully took out the blade and laid your motionless body on the ground. Blood flowed through the
What?
cold
Am murit din primul
mosaic
chapter?
stones.
De prost am făcut aici altru?
The corners of Yu's
Greetings
mouth
from the past
spread
achievement.
into a smile.
What? You're kidding? You. Alright. Yeah.
I suppose I will start at the very beginning.
Kishok mono dal chibu pasi.
Chapter 1. Once
Skip last kalau bosot.
it was he was this it his having
Work.
the trip to work took him by several blocks. He considered early morning to be an extremely pleasant time of day. Universal euphoria. Although euphoria usually precedes inevitable death. As soon as he went into the park, he saw a kid in ragged clothes running away from a pack of stray dogs. His eyes caught a swiftly ticking clock hand.
Help.
Even though Yu had been scared of dogs since childhood, he was going to run to the kid's aid. But the latter stumbled and fell down on the pavement, and the dogs lost all interest in him.
Bon.
Yu had nothing to do with the outcome of events, but he was filled with pride for his desire to help the boy that he did not even know. It made him come up to the kid, who was sitting on the ground with a bloody knee and a toothless smile, not because of the fall, but due to his age. Yu was about to give the kid a handkerchief with his initials on it when he noticed it had fresh traces of his own blood. So he just asked, "Can I do something for you?"
Thank you, sir. I am okay. They did not mean to hurt me.
At that moment, Yu saw his boss in the distance and hurried to work, shouting a quick, "Be careful," over his shoulder. On the way to the office, the thought about how strange it felt to be addressed as Sir bounced around in his head. Although he had passed a 30-year-old milestone, he felt closer to the kid with a bloody knee than to sirs of any kind, even the least important of them. Yu went up 3 flights of stairs and found himself on the top floor. It was the office of the insurance company where he worked. The door was unlocked. Was he late? He tried to walk in, but was stopped by a stranger. Wait! Where are you going?
Lamuk.
Before you could give a proper response to the cad, his boss came up the stairs, struggling to catch his breath, and did it himself. Let him in. They both entered the office, and the boss walked Yu to his desk, where he explained the situation to him in private. That is Frank, my distant relative. He needs to do an internship, so he is going to work here for a while. As who? As a security guard. To avoid any further questions, the boss turned around and went to his office. An internship as a security guard in an insurance company, fitting in 2 rooms. Ridiculous. If I was blessed with a writing talent, I would definitely immortalize this, you thought. Yu got down to some clerical work. Yu found a moment and took the morning letter out of his pocket. Glancing at the address line, a chill went through Yu's body for a split second. From Dorina. Yu was confused by the seal on the envelope. Is she? Suddenly, there was a curious voice saying, "Who is coming?" Yu did not answer and continued reading. Dear Yu, Yu hurried to the cafe. It is uncertain whether he actually wanted to find her there or hoped for the opposite. One way or another, when he was in the appointed place, Dorina was not there. All emotions left Yu in an instant. He saw the kid on the porch of the cafe veranda. The kid was looking at him, squinting in an odd way. Why are you squinting?
I am not. I closed my eye on purpose. Go ahead, close one eye.
Yu covered his right eye with his hand to humor the kid.
Feels strange. Do not open. I did it to remember about the mercy that life bestows on us. You get used to having just one eye, and then it turns out you have another. Or here's another thing. Hold your breath.
Hold your breath. Ok. Foarte ciudat. Revenim imediat.
I suppose I will start at the very beginning. Chapter 1. What? Despite his unusual, it wasn't an. He was used to working. This. His room. Having got dressed. Somebody. He considered. His eyes caught a swift. It was unclear what had made you so anxious. Fear of dogs, or of being late to work. He distanced himself from reality, refused to play any role except that of an outside observer. However, he had had no chance to interfere. The picture of the kid falling down on the ground, breaking skin on his knees, flashed before his eyes. Then of the dogs, losing all interest in him. You immediately felt nauseous. Everything went dark, and it seemed to him that he was looking at himself through the eyes of the kid. Just like when he was a child. Deja vu! In order to justify his actions to himself, he took the handkerchief with his initials and handed it to the kid. Before the latter could say anything, Yu ran away to avoid further conversation. In a hurry, he went in the wrong direction, unaware of it until he ran into a locked gate on his way. He casually turned around and went to work. He was almost there when he saw his boss enter the office building. He took it as his personal failure, although his watch showed that he still had several minutes. Yu barely got into the office when he noticed two male silhouettes behind him. He turned around to see his boss and a man he had never seen before, a little further away. Figuring that they would have to be introduced to each other, he turned to the stranger first. Let me introduce myself. You. My name is Frank. And you? To avoid unnecessary explanations, Yu took a name tag from his table and pointed to it. Yes, despite the fact that there was no live communication with clients, the work charter required name tags, probably to remember his name. Wow, that's a very unusual name. Nice to meet you. It is the only unusual detail of my life. An awkward pause hung in the air. The boss, standing behind Frank, frowned and cast a reproachful glance at Yu. Frank is our security guard starting today. Oh, we have nothing to. A security guard. Some of my important documents are missing. There are only two of us. What kind of documents? That I cannot tell you. You mean you suspect me? No, I do not. Eliminating any opportunity to continue this conversation, the boss turned around and went into his office. The room plunged into silence. Yu got down to some clerical work. Yu found a moment and took the morning letter out of his pocket. Glancing at the address line,
Nu cred.
a chill.
Ce face sexul ăsta aici?
Is she really coming back to Cannot? He said out loud. Suddenly, there was a curious voice saying, "Who is coming?" You did not answer and continued reading. Dear you. Another working day turned into night.
Ce zicem? Thanks.
The newly appointed watchman dozed off at his improvised post, an ordinary chair at the entrance to the office.
Nimic jocul ăsta oricum, așa că, da.
Yu was sitting at his sturdy desk, imagining again and again how the shelves, stocked with books on jurisprudence, would break loose due to their own weight from friable concrete and break his head. Allowing himself a little break, Yu took his diary from his table drawer and made a note.
I never took a plate of soup at school lunches, even when I really wanted to. I was afraid to spill it in front of everyone, but I could put it on the table, which seems to be my life's pattern.
Da, e ok, am făcut un joc ăla. Probabil că știi.
There was a rustle of the janitor's broom and the trill of birds outside the window. More accurate than the clock, you thought. Chapter 2. On the second day of work, every sip of coffee came out of his nose as blood.
What? Make a blood.
Covering his nose with his hand, Yu went to the restroom.
Las că o să te joci tu când îl primești.
Excuse me. I wish I could narrate a little faster and keep you from getting bored. But it is difficult in my condition. Let's continue. Returning to his workplace, Yu saw Frank sitting at his table and leafing through his personal diary. Such violation of personal boundaries, it seemed, was about to put Yu out of temper.
Pentru cine?
Yu gripped his diary and unexpectedly for himself pushed Frank to the wall, knocking a chair out from under him.
Ce am făcut? L-am omorât?
The shelves above Yu's desk shook and fell on Frank, lying in a fetal position, covering his head with his hands.
Da, văd.
You did not
E ceva micos, am zis, nu e... Nu știu ce.
There was nothing but inner noise in his head. Engulfed with righteous anger, Yu stood over the defeated god.
Achievement, Crimson Stream.
Under his head were slowly filled with crimson stream.
Încă prea music, probabil. Da, știu. L-am de mult, dar am vrut să joc, să scap de el, știi? Dacă am făcut asta, let's go. Ask him to give it back. Oh.
Can I ask you a question? Why does everyone in your notes die? Perhaps the lack of communication affected you. Unexpectedly for himself, he answered the question directly.
I'm not but it seems to me that the desire to kill a self-protagonist in the text takes root in the desire
Nu,
to
pot să l-am luat eu, l-am
describe
văzut pe...
situation from a real self.
Nu mai știu unde, sincer, pe nebun. Și l-am luat. Dar nu cum se numește jocul. Și am văzut că e cu alegeri și, da, scurt, pana mea.
Or, at least he had thought about it before. Silence set in. Frank was embarrassed by his answer and tried to look understanding.
Well, more likely that it is just easier to kill.
The office phone rang.
Fuck.
As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped.
Ah, troll, am înțeles. Știi pe ei indie jocul, asta e faza.
He barely returned to his desk when the phone rang again.
Răspundem din nou, până
As
mâine.
soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned to... As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned to it. As soon as you came up to the phone, the
Look.
ringing stopped. He... As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned.
Mi se pare că un achievement dacă faci asta în continuu.
As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He barely returned to his desk. As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped.
Nu știu.
He barely returned to his desk when the phone rang again.
Ori, mai dă și achievementul ăla
As
dată?
soon as you came up to the phone,
come on.
the ringing stopped. He barely returned to... As soon as you came up to the phone, the ringing stopped. He... I clearly remembered that. There was definitely no answer.
Oh, e altceva acum.
Where was I? I will have to start again.
Broken story. Achievement, ok.
Once upon a time, there lived you. Despite his
Oh, stai
unusual...
bă, așa, bă. Există un pic. Stai un pic. Vreau să ajung în chapterul 3, că și sunt 3 chaptere. Ia, să vedem. Trecem peste asta că l-am mai văzut, bla 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 bla. Așa.
Let's continue. Returning to
Așa.
such violence.
Văzut. Dacă dau snitch it back, se întâmplă ceva rău, ask him to give it back. Așa.
Give it to me.
Here, take
Bla bla bla.
in a moment. I am sorry if I offended you. The incident seemed to be over. Can I ask, why does...
Ok, și ce răspundem silenced. Așa.
Frowning, you ignore the question of the self-styled guard. The office phone rang. The ringing bored into his skull. You was buzzing together with the receiver. You involuntarily took off, but his head started spinning, and he was seeing dark spots. Holding onto the railing, you slid down the stairs and jumped out onto the street.
De ce?
He ran into his boss at the door, who stood there smoking.
Go to bed now. You can give me the rest of the papers tomorrow.
He did not have any strength left to work anyway. Although he left some things in the office, you was not in a hurry to go back. He sat down on the doorstep to rest. His vision was not particularly keen on the second day, so it took him a while to recognize a familiar face. You livened a little. A welcoming grin appeared on his face.
Hi, Max. Why are you not at work?
I dismissed my students a little early. How are you feeling?
As usual, another night shift.
Ok.
If I was your father, I would have fired you long ago.
What will be left for me then? Max answered with a question.
Do you want me to take your shift?
No, thank you. Yes. De ce nu?
They let you go. But there is still a lot of work to do.
Okay, I will talk to your father.
Don't you dare.
Max had a fit of grunting coughing, to Yu's surprise. Max tried to hide it very hard, but Yu noticed blood on his palms, which he quickly hid in his pocket. Yu decided to play along with his old friend, pretending that the latter had not given his secret away. Max tried to quietly wipe the traces of blood with a handkerchief, the corner of which was still visible from the pocket of his coat. The handkerchief was way too familiar. It was Darina's handkerchief.
Ce căuta la asta?
What was that?
What do you mean? I have a cold. There have been droughts in my classroom for 3 days.
Yu looked at his own hands, counting his fingers. Boring, but quite expected. They were all there. He was clearly weaker than his friend was, but, having lost control of himself, he grabbed Max by the front of his shirt, which led to a clumsy brawl.
Sì.
Max pushed Yu against his shoulder in an attempt to break away. Because of an insult
Old
or
friend.
uneven stones on the pavement, Yu lost his balance and fell down, hitting the curb with the back of his head. As if examining a painting, Yu fixed his dying look on his fingers and counted them.
Don't put that on
Counted them again and again.
Questa mi ha reputato a me.
Chapter 2. On the second
Vreau să scriu la chestiile astea. Ia vreme. Cocov.
Excuse me.
Vreau să intrăm în capitolul următor. În 3.
Returning to his workplace, Yu saw Frank sitting at his table and leaving. Such violation.
Ask him to give it back frumos.
Give it to...
Așa.
Here, take it. In a moment. I am sorry if... Can I ask... Why does... The office... Where was I? I will have to start
What?
again. Once upon...
What?
Despite...
Come on, don't do me like that.
On the second day... Let's continue. Returning to his workplace. Such...
Give it to...
Here, take it. In a moment. I am sorry if I offend... The incident... Can I ask you... Why does everyone...
Keep silence.
Frowning. The office phone...
Ignore.
The... You in... Holding... He didn't...
Așa.
Although... His vision was... You livened a little. I dismissed my if I was your father.
Max answered with a question.
Do you want me to? No, thank you.
You quickly said goodbye and left. He heard some painful coughing behind his back, and his lips let out a grin of satisfaction. Coming home, you could barely stand on his feet. Notwithstanding his lack of sleep and fatigue, he could not fall asleep.
Did you know?
The day flashed in his head on repeat. As for the breakup, he did not see himself as the victim. On the contrary, the entire time during his relationship with Dorina, you wondered,
Why did she love him? Drained of all strength and weak in spirit from birth.
he did not anymore. Dizziness and pain subsided. At some point, he even thought about calling a doctor, just to make sure that he was still alive. But sleep took its toll. Chapter 3.
Yeah.
The alarm went off. You faced a new day with weakness in his legs and a throbbing headache. All night long, he had been haunted by a painfully familiar nightmare. However, when he woke up, all tangible images dissolved, leaving only a nasty precipitate. His body led him to the kitchen in search of caffeine. Despite the early hours, he found his boss there.
How are you feeling?
You heard the question, but ignored it.
How difficult is it to answer?
He was pleased to hear the words of concern, even coming that way.
I'm sorry, Father.
What? Boșe taxul? Acum mi-a dat
A
seama.
cup in his hand, inevitably filled with bloody coffee.
You look like shit. I feel like it. I do not want to lose my last son, even someone like you.
His father had his old wool suit on and was about to leave for work.
You do not have to go to the office today. Get some rest.
Go to work.
You did not tell anyone about this, but I am going to tell you confidentially. He believed that the disease manifested itself most fiercely when he went to bed.
Ce disease?
That
Ar fi
was
luat
why he
depresie sau
did
ce?
not like sleep. His night fantasies became crazier with time. Every dream seemed to him a step closer to insanity. In order to control himself, he regularly looked at his hands and at the clock hands. He walked out of the door and noticed a stranger near the opposite house.
Ok.
That stranger was an identical copy of you,
Da?
as if his long-lost twin.
Nu e posibil.
You
Probabil un
thrilled
vis.
and watched him. The door was half open, and he saw a pretty girl and a little boy, probably the same age as the kid, behind it. The newly appeared copy of you smiled, said goodbye to his family, and disappeared.
Spy on a double, go to work. Spy?
You decided to follow the imposter. He was filled with excitement and almost childish curiosity.
Yu's assiduous attempts not to give himself away were unwarranted. His double had no intention of turning around. The pavement, the slums, the sound of the heartbeat of a whale. A straight path led them to the railway station. Suddenly, the second Yu turned back in the direction of the original, but the latter went unnoticed. The station was unusually empty. The double went to the counter and bought a ticket. Yu, without much hesitation, waited for a convenient moment and went up to the same window. I would like the same ticket, the same time. A heavy, apathetic cashier automatically held out the requested ticket without batting an eye. The ticket said 8 o'clock. The train was about to arrive. The double sat on a bench near the right track. Yu stayed at a distance, keeping an eye on him. He was so excited that the illness fell into the background. The train rattled in the distance. The double got up and walked to the edge of the platform. Yu came close to him for... Yes, he had decided to start a conversation. He was going to do it in the car, so that the double could not escape. Before Yu realized what was happening, the double threw himself under the moving train.
What?
Yu choked from horror. His feet seemed glued to the platform. Everything around him froze. In a moment, hysterical screams of eyewitnesses pierced the frozen air. How come he had not noticed them before?
Somebody was killed. He pushed him.
Oh,
Get him! Train rattle squeezed out the last drops of sanity. Blurred silhouettes,
çığ alat, achievement.
human justice surrounded Yu.
Fuck.
Is this the end?
Maybe.
The alarm went off.
Era sigurkin biz.
Yu faced a new day with weakness in his legs and a throbbing headache. All night long, he had been haunted by a painfully familiar nightmare. However, when he woke up, all tangible images dissolved, leaving only a nasty precipitate. His body led him to the kitchen.
Ah, si ripeto. Nice.
How are you feeling? You heard... How difficult...
Nu scriu asta că l-am auzit deja.
I'm... A cup in use. You look like I feel like... I do not want to lose... His father... You do not have to go to the office.
Cred că găutor, nu? Găutor, let's go.
You did not tell anyone about this, but I am going to tell you confidentially. He believed that the disease manifested itself most fiercely. That was why you did not like his night fantasies.
Ok.
In order to control him, you liked to alter his route to work every now and then. He would walk through the park, or that patio, or the arch, by which he used to run so often. all that in order to somehow distinguish between days. Otherwise, everything merged into one endless stream. He remembered that it was the last working day before the holiday when he came up to the office door. Entering the office, you noticed that Frank was not there. He grinned at that maliciously for some reason. He found a new batch of documents on his table. Pinning his name tag on his jacket, you got to work.
Ok,
The work did not
Complementar.
take as much time on the last working day. He easily sorted out insurance files and, like a clerical deity, decided the client's fate, deciding who was to receive payments and who had mutilated himself with the purpose of deception. Having gone through most of the papers, he came across an extremely familiar storyline. Insurance form, life insurance, Form 42, fractures, serious illness, and death. Insurance does not cover self-inflicted injuries, self-inflicted infection, or suicide. Date of insurance, March 29th. Date of death, April 5th. Insurance sum, 203,500 coins. Salary, 15,000 coins. The client
wow.
was an insurance agent. He bought a train ticket, later to be found under its wheels. Witness testimonies varied. According to some testimonies, he was pushed down onto the track. According to the other, he stumbled. Since the gap between the date of insurance and the date of death was so small, there was a note in the file indicating a suspected suicide.
Come this to me.
All risks were borne by the office that makes the final decision.
What? Starcie. Nic nie.
You confirmed the insurance payout to... What guided him? Did it evoke his sense of justice, compassion, selfishness, or maybe shame? I am sorry. No, you do not have to answer. You completed his work earlier than planned. Satisfied, he carefully unfastened his name tag and put it in front of himself. A confusing question went through his head. What's next? It was Yu's first holiday, and it seemed he did not even plan what to do during the long-awaited vacation. He took his time to clean up his desk and went to his boss's office. He formally knocked a couple times on the door and appeared before his father.
Can I go?
Can I go now? I have processed all the documents.
The father glanced first at the calendar, then at the clock. It took him a while to realize why his son was asking him that.
Yes, you are dismissed.
There was an awkward pause between the family members. To break the silence, you mumbled,
If there is nothing else I can do, you can go. Okay.
You picked up his things, unable to shake off the feeling that he was awkwardly saying goodbye to his workplace. Leaving the office, you noticed a suspiciously familiar face of a person coming out of the opposite building. He was Yu's identical double.
What? Again, twin. No.
A sensation of déjà vu continued. It lasted until his double noticed him, wiping a smile off his face.
Okay. The end. Ciudați trenul.
All night. His body, despite the early hours. How are you feeling? You heard the question. How difficult? You was pleased. I'm sorry. A cup in Yu's hand. You look like shit. I feel like it. I do not. You don't.
Rest. Să vedem.
Okay, I will try. Yu went to his room and sat down at his desk. He took a pen and then remembered that he left his diary at work. Yu took some letters out of the drawer, which had not been sent for some reason. He took one of the letters and added a few lines to it. Remember when grandfather made me listen to a rhythmic beat in the air? It is the heartbeat of a gigantic whale who swallowed our universe. And I believed him. What about you? You said it was just train wheels wobbling. So I decided that the whale had died a long time ago, which was better than it being just a fantasy. Do you understand? Asking you this is easy on paper because you will not answer me. Adding those lines, he felt he had completed something important and allowed himself to take a nap. Once he dozed off, he heard a knock on the door. Any unexpected knock on the door or telephone call could evoke severe paranoia in you. Because the knock on your door is louder and more alarming than on any other door.
Okay.
In a moment, there was rustling of envelopes slipping into the mail slot of the front door.
Continue sleeping, go to the front door. Dormi.
It seemed to him that he had been tossing about in his bed, trying to fall asleep for several hours. He stayed awake, so he decided to glance through the delivered letters. He had already learned to enjoy his rubbery legs and dizziness. Looking through the stack of utility bills, Yu found the letter addressed to him. It was a letter from the sanatorium where he had undergone treatment that summer.
Yeah.
Dear Mr. Yu, I am afraid I have to inform you that you were misdiagnosed due to a serious mistake on my part. An unfortunate confusion of the documents led me to make the wrong diagnosis. Your debility is of psychological nature, which can be associated with a frequent exposure to stressful situations. You are not suffering from an incurable disease. Please accept my sincere apologies. Your attending physician, K. His legs gave way under him, not because of weakness, but because of a sudden boost of energy. His heart pounded with the strength of a whale, but with the speed of a shrew.
He laid down on the bed, unable to withstand a rush of emotions. With an unusual smile on his face, he was staring at the ceiling. After a few minutes, he asked with horror,
A new chandelier?
To lie down, alt achievement. Bun. Deci nu e il. E bine.
You faced a new... All... His body... Despite...
How are you feeling? How difficult?
A cup in Yu's hand.
You look like shit.
I feel.
You do not have...
Go to work din nou. Și de data asta o să lucrăm în continuu. Hai să vedem.
That was why you... His... In or... You... He would... And... He... Pen... He easily... Have... Insurance form. Native. Insurance. You can... What? Did it... I am sorry. You complete... Satisfied? A confused... It was you. He took his... He formally knocked...
Can I go? Is there anything I can do?
Is there anything else I can do?
If you have processed the last papers, then you need to fill out the statements.
I already have.
Wait, has your holiday just started? Look at the time. It is the end of the workday. You can go. I dismiss you.
I will work some more.
As you wish. Take it easy on the coffee.
You took a folder with the statements and turned to leave. Fearing he might appear too soft, the father added,
I do not need a stroke here.
a satisfied
You have
smile
so much work,
flashed on his
achievement.
face.
Ok.
Chapter 1. Once upon a time, it was he was used to work. This it, his, ha- he walked. The thought you was
Așa.
he felt
Go to work.
the trip to work took him by a few blocks, but the road seemed endless that way. Though you suffered from excessive hypochondria,
Am auzit asta.
since that moment, as deja vu. Yu's heart dropped. Time stood still.
Run away, freeze in place.
Wishing to regain control of the situation, Yu froze in place in an attempt to suppress fear. Taking it for insolence, the mongrels became even angrier. Without slowing down, one of the dogs jumped and grabbed your throat.
Gigi, m-am urât.
The barking slowly died down. His father yielded a piercing shout. Silence.
Liking, subscribe, ce s-a întâmplat? Da, îmi place că sunt melodii pentru fiecare ending. Dar cred că ți-ai copiat la lecție mult.
Despite his unusual, it wasn't. He was. This. It reminded his. He. The thought that next Sunday. You was. He felt. The trip to work, though he since as deja vu, Yu's heart. Time stood still.
Run away.
Yu tried to run away, but he barely took a couple of steps and stumbled, falling flat on the ground. As soon as he stretched out on the pavement, the dogs lost all interest in him. Everything that happened seemed to him insanely familiar, bringing back his childhood memories. Holding onto his neck and feeling old scars against his palm, Yu looked at his ragged suit. His head was buzzing from pain. Glancing at his watch, he wondered if it was appropriate to go to work looking like that.
Clar nu. Go to work, go home to change, logic. Și terminat.
Yu thought that he could not appear at work looking like that and decided to change his clothes. Feeling like a little child who had fallen in a puddle, he was going home. The darn soup had spilled. He ran into his boss on his way home.
Uitați.
His message was short. You are fired.
What?
He was too weak to protest. You could not get rid of the thought. Why would the boss do it? The shelves were piled
Broken
with
hands. Alt
documents waiting,
achievement.
and it would be hard to find a replacement. Everything seemed like a bad dream. Head was ringing from pain.
Alright. Să facem toate achievement-urile. Mă uit și pe un guide, pentru că nu sunt multe achievement-uri. E jocul micuț și merită. Adică de ce nu? Mai vreau că trebuie să dai escape.
He walked up to the trip to he can as his eyes
Step back.
it was unclear what had the picture of the kid falling down on the ground, breaking skin on his knees, flashed before his eyes. You immediately felt nauseous, just like when Deja, in order to justify his actions to himself. Before the latter could say anything, you ran away to avoid further conversation. In a hurry, he went in the wrong direction, unaware of it until he ran into a locked gate on his way. He casually turned around and went to work. He was almost there when he saw his boss enter the office building. He took it as his personal failure, although his watch showed that he still had several minutes. You barely got into the office when he noticed two male silhouettes.
Let me introduce myself. You.
My name is Frank. To avoid... Yes. Wow. An awkward pause.
Frank is... Who? A security guard. There are only two of us.
That I cannot tell you.
You...
No. Eliminating any... The... You...
Is she...
Suddenly, there was a curious voice saying, "You, dear." He felt
Fac o cafea.
you hurried. It is uncertain. One way,
Cred că mai am făcut asta, sincer.
his injured knee. Yu's mind was clouded. The kid handed.
What for? Keep it.
Your nose is bleeding. The kid occupied himself with a scab on his knee.
Arci. Uite că am luat. Bun. Nice.
Chapter. The alarm. You faced this.
How are you feeling?
You heard the.
How difficult?
I'm sorry. A cup in.
You look like.
I feel.
You do not have to.
You did not tell anyone about this. He believed that was why his night fantasy. In you, he would walk. Entering the office, you noticed that he found a new batch of documents on his, pinning his name tag. He having did it. Insurance sum. The client was an insurance agent. He bought a train ticket, later to be. You confirmed the insurance. What did it evoke? His. I am. You completed his. A confusion. It was. He formally knocked.
Can I go now? I have processed all the documents.
The father glanced first at the calendar, then at the clock. It took him a while to realize what.
Yes, you are dismissed.
There was an awkward. To break the.
You can go.
Okay. You picked up. Leaving the office, you noticed a suspiciously familiar. He was Yu's identical double. A sensation. It lasted until his.
Shit, nu mi-a dat achievement. Că am mai făcut asta, da. Gigantic Well.
Chapter 3. The alarm went off. You faced. all his despite.
How are you feeling?
How difficult. I'm so a cup.
You look.
I feel.
You.
Go to work.
You do not tell anyone about this. He believes that the disease that was his night in order to he would walk.
Cred că știu cum se au celelalte două achievementuri. Trebuie să dau decline la chestia, nu accept.
He found a new pinning it. Insurance data. The client was
Decline.
You refused the insurance payout, figuring he had guessed the man's motives correctly. What guided him when making such? Did he?
Arrogant,
His
selfish.
desktop got empty. He completed his work early. Yet,
Dissatisfied.
he felt that he had missed something. Not knowing what to do with himself, he politely knocked a couple times on the door and appeared before his father.
Can I go? I have processed all the papers.
Taking the question as insolence, his father,
You are dismissed.
not quite realizing what to do next, you paused to think.
You can go.
Picking up his things, you left the office. Was he really on
E gândim
holiday?
hall. Well, nu hall.
As soon as he stepped over the threshold, he felt unwell. His chest rattled like a moving train.
Bun, și mai avem un achievement.
The alarm went off.
Ca să facem full și după o să încheiem, pentru că cred că am luat toate deciziile posibile.
You faced a new all night. His body, despite
How are you feeling?
you,
How difficult?
you was
I'm
a cup in you's hand, inevitably filled with bloody coffee.
You look like shit.
I feel like it.
I do not want to lose. You don't.
Go to work.
You, he, that was his night in order to control. He would walk through the park.
Iar o să mai ascult asta, pentru că am ascultat deja, nu mi se pare...
Pinning it. The work did not. He easily sorted. Having insurance form. Date of insurance. The client.
Decline din nou și de data asta o să cerem muncă, nu plecăm acasă. Și cred că așa ne dă ultimul achievement. Și by the way, ăla că te dădea monster la telefon și repeta același cuvânt, practic e un achievement secret.
His desktop got. Yet, he was.
Scria pe
He
wiki.
felt that he had missed something. Not knowing what to do with himself, he went. He politely.
Is there anything else I can do?
Is there anything else
else to do.
Coci de morți.
If you have processed the final papers, then you need to fill out the statements.
Yes, I have.
Wait, has your holiday just started? Look at the time. It is the end of the workday. You can go.
I would like to help some more.
Look at you.
To work.
You could use some help yourself.
Achievement.
Maybe this will help.
He mumbled to himself, picking up a folder with the statements and walking out.
Bun, am luat toate achievementurile din jocul acesta. Da. A fost un minigame, a fost cu câteva alegeri, câteva chestii ciudățele, câteva chestii... nu știu că se mi se pare cam depresiv, sincer. Dar l-am avut de multe library, l-am luat tot așa de undeva. Și părea promițător. E un joc indie foarte scurt, e un mini-story, nu e cine știe ce, dar am vrut să-l termin. Și am făcut și toate achievementurile și sunt destul de mulțumit. Am mai puțin de 2 ore, deci ok. Am să fac jocul ăsta de mult, dar am zis că, bă, nu știu cum să-l fac și am zis că, bă, hai că-l fac după Soma, că, sincer, nu știam ce joc să mai fac după Soma și mi-am să aminte de ăsta, un joc uitat. Și după asta chiar nu mai știu ce serii să fac, o să mă uit. Nu știu dacă vor mai urma serii în zilele următoare, probabil ăsta va fi, nu știu, ultimul live până la, nu știu, pentru câteva zile, până găsesc eu o serie sau ceva, nu știu, vedem. Dar, n-am fi acum, au găsit salutele, nu știu, în fine, nu știu ce să zic. Dar ăsta a fost My Name Is You, and is the only unusual thing in my life. Povestea tipul ăsta, destul de interesantă, vi le recomand pentru că este ieftin, e așa, la mișto, nu știu, nu e nici cine știe ce, dar nici prost, e ok. Bine. Dacă v-a plăcut, nu uitați să dați acolo un like, eu am fost Scorpion Alberto X, nu uitați să dați acolo un like. Sunt pentru atenția acordată și în caz că nu mai fac live în câteva zile, să vă zic de pe acum, nu știu, sărbători fericite. Și da, ne auzim într-un live următor. Sper eu mai curând. Pe curând.